And welcome everyone to this afternoon's Wednesday webinar, 529 Plans, powered by Fellows. My name is Kimberly Fridley, and I'm the Membership Development Analyst here at the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. Excuse me. We are so honored that you chose to spend your afternoon with us. Please continue to spread the word to your family, your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors about membership at our credit union. We want you to know that we are committed to taking care of our members' financial dreams. It is my privilege and honor today to introduce our panelist team. We have Milton Aguilar Bolanos. He's our Membership Development Officer. We also have Michael Schimmel. He's a financial advisor with Fellows. They are a trusted partner with our credit union for financial advisory services for our members. Just a little bit about Michael. Michael studied in Oxford, Ohio at Miami University, swoop the Red Hawk, and graduated with a BA in political science and economics. Michael has worked for global and national banks, from HSBC Bank to Wachovia, in various financial services capacities. Michael's passion is exactly the same as the credit union: people helping people. Michael has helped clients with financial decisions, implementation, planning for the future, and protecting their families' assets from the risks that face every individual. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Kimberly. All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon. Depends on where you are in the country or in the world. Again, as Kimberly said, my name is Michael Schimmel with Fellows Financial Group. It's a pleasure to be here today. Just a little quick snippet on Fellows. Fellows Financial Group is located in Northern Virginia. We serve the DC metro area. We're a boutique financial advisory firm, wealth management firm. We work for our clients to help them live their best lives. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about 529 college plans and savings plans. It's kind of one. It's college planning. Month 529s is a plan. The 529 comes from actually the IRS code line that actually established this. So that's where the name comes from. And so today we're going to go through college savings plans, and we're going to try to get your questions answered. We are going to be, going through a bunch of stuff. Just simply, we have a list in front of you. What is a 529? How does it work? How is it treated from taxes? Can I contribute a lot? If I'm eligible, can I contribute a little bit? How often can I contribute? Can other people contribute for my children on my behalf? Can I make withdrawals? How do I make withdrawals? The list goes on with these things. And, today we're going to talk about a lot of them, but we probably won't get through them all. So my information is going to be at the end of this slideshow. It's also on the United States Senate Federal Credit Union website, which we're proud to be a partner with. As Kimberly had alluded to, the mission that the credit union has with their members is the exact same our firm has. And we want to help people accomplish their goals, their dreams, and really live their best life. And you can do that with a great support team and putting the right mechanisms in place, and the planning and the tactics and strategies to really get there. So with that said, let's jump into kind of what is a 529 plan. So simply, a 529 plan is an investment account that offers tax benefits when used to pay for what's called a qualified education expense for a designated beneficiary. So what a lot of that means is an investment account, just kind of like your brokerage account at Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Merrill Lynch, Robinhood, etc. And tax benefits, well, that means they defer. In this regard, they're deferring money, taxes that would be paid on the growth of the money that you put in. And a qualified education expense, what is it considered a qualified education? So that is defined by the IRS. Largely, rule of thumb is anything that can run through a bursar office, through college, private schools, etc. If it goes through a bursar office, it's allowed through a 529 as a qualified education expense. So 529s in a nutshell allow investors or individuals, parents, grandparents, or just just associates to be able to save money in an account where their earnings are going to grow tax deferred and used to pay qualified higher education expenses. Now, it's not always higher education expenses. That law has changed. It used to be only college. Now it is some private schools that you can do that, etc. But the best part of it is you put in money early and it grows for 20 years in an example, and all the money that it has grown into, so hopefully it's tripled by then, and you really get the money tax-free. So it can become a very powerful financial tool to help offset the cost of college. So as I alluded to, you can pay for college, you can pay for K through 12 tuition in a private institution, you can pay for apprenticeships and even student loan repayments, which was just put into law with the Secure Act 2.0. There's still some stuff that's coming out, but that will be starting shortly in regards to the student loan repayments. So a 529 has become an even more valuable piece for people that have almost already gone to college. Maybe they've already racked up the debt, but you can still put away money, have it grow tax deferred, and then use that money to pay off your student loans. So if you're using a 529 to save for college, you're going to be, your savings is going to have a very minimal impact on financial aid eligibility. A lot of people worry, well, if I accumulate all this money in a 529, is it going to blow my chances at financial aid through the institution, or is it going to blow my chances on getting my FAFSA, etc.? The answer is no, right? It's a very, very small impact. The government has changed how they help calculate that. Now, private institutions might still ding you a little bit because you have more of a resources, but in regards to the federal applications for aid and things of that nature, it really does not impact you in regards to eligibility. It used to. That's an old wise, kind of one of the legacy things when 529s came out. It used to penalize you quite a bit if you had savings dedicated for education. But we've moved away from that. The law has been changed for the better in this case. So what is kind of, what do they offer, right? So 529s are plans that have investments inside of them. So as I alluded to earlier, the 529 is just a designation of the IRS code that created this provision that lets you put money into an investment account called a 529, and you're able to invest in mutual funds, ETFs, individual stocks, etc. And that money grows, and it grows tax deferred. And as long as you use the money for a qualified education expense, you don't pay any taxes on the gains. Now, there's risk involved, right? Anytime you're entering in mutual funds, ETFs, stock market, there's risks that you need to account for. And the age of your children and when you're going to need this money is going to impact how you need to manage that risk and manage the investments in there. Also, the overall market conditions, it's hard to know 20 years from now, but we probably have a good idea of where the economy is going to be in the next year to 2 years with an educated guess. So you can't just set it and forget it in most of these cases, because your children age. As your children age, and when you might need the money, that risk has to come off, which means your investment mix is going to change. So there's two different types of 529s. There's prepaid tuition plans, and there's college savings plans. So prepaid tuition plans are pure and simple, where you put in a certain amount of money towards the state, and they will lock in the tuition for the year that you put in the money for. You are in exactly what it says. You are prepaying the future tuition at today's cost. Now, given education inflation, that has played out in a very, good way for people that have been able to do that. However, you need a decent amount of money to be able to prepay for a full year of college or a full year of private school, et cetera. The college savings plans, the 529s, do not require a certain dollar amount to be put in all up front or at all. You've got flexibility, and that flexibility allows you to build that into your day in, day out cash flow of the household to be able to properly save and contribute to these plans in a more feasible manner for a lot of people. So a little bit more about prepaid, on the prepaid tuition is, it is a deal. I mean, when you look back at how education inflation has happened over the years, if you look at any state college or university, it's really to lock in today's rate versus 20 years has been a good decision. Will it always be a good decision? I don't know. There's no guarantee education inflation continues at the rate that we've seen over the years. Because when you are deciding to do a prepaid tuition versus a 529 in the market, you are betting that inflation in tuition is going to outpace the returns that you can get in the market. So you are making a decision, and there's a little less risk in the prepaid tuition because you know where your money's going to go. You just don't know how well it's going to accumulate, so to speak, due to college inflation or educational inflation. So, but what prepaid tuition plans do is they bring all the money together across the state, for that institution, and they make long range investments. So they will buy real estate, they'll buy government bonds, they'll buy foreign government bonds, they'll buy corporate, General Mills, Microsoft, some of these staple names that provide and issue bonds or provide long-term cash flow. So these institutions use this money today, invest the money under their prerogative, and then they guarantee your tuition's paid for. So that's a little bit about how the prepaid tuition plans work. So the college plans, or the market-based plans allow participants to save money in a fund designated for the student. Now, that student can change over time. The student can be a parent, it can be a husband, it can be a wife, it can be anybody that's going to school, really. It doesn't necessarily have to be your beneficiary per the IRS, okay? Contributions, well, they limit, the limits vary depending on the individual plan, but they're very high in regards to kind of the contributions that you can put in as a one-time gift. And we'll get to that in a little bit. The 529s really shine when you have a number of years. If you start a 529 when the children or the beneficiary is 10, 15, 20 years away from college, that gives you the most time to double, triple, quadruple the money that you have put in there over time. So, and you know what? It's resonated across, the country. So just some quick stats, the number of 529 college savings accounts, is above 7.2 million today, with an account value of over $400 billion, which is pretty amazing. The average balance is about 25,000, which, that's numbers a little outdated and probably hasn't moved very much given the market conditions. But 25,000, when you think about it, is it going to help? Is that 25,000 going to pay for private school? No. But if you're talking about an in-state public education, $25,000 goes a long way. So people are using them, and they're working. So how do they work, right? So when we look at 529s, they're purchased. Individuals purchase interest in a trust established by the state. So 529s are state specific. That's what that means. So Virginia has a 529 program. Maryland's got a 529. Every state has its individual 529 program. And they are done so as a trust, okay? And the assets are invested according to the trust's stated objectives, i.e., they normally hire a fund family like American Funds in Virginia or T. Rowe Price in other states, and Franklin Templeton and others. Or they might give you a menu of different funds that have been approved by that state to be in that specific 529's state's plan. So, as we talked about, they engage investment firms of the likes that I've just mentioned. And there's a variety of different instruments that you're allowed to put the money in inside the 529. The 529 is just a bubble, if you think about it. And then there's all these different mutual funds or ETFs that you're able to purchase inside of it to grow your funds. So, as I talked about, who provides them? They're state specific, all right? And they are normally, you don't have your choice of institutions normally that are providing them. The state dictates each 529. So 529s are largely sold through registered investment advisors, RIAs, and broker dealers. So any investment professional should be able to provide a 529 and offer guidance into how to create it and how to get registered and how to fund it. So in some states, though, they can only be made through the state personnel, right? They don't have the option to have an investment advisor kind of coach you through the process and also help you manage the investments that's done in the state from a state perspective. So it really depends on the state that you're in, and that will help dictate kind of the 529 specifics on what's available to you, who can help you do it, and how to actually go about doing it. So why do we want to do 529s, right? So we already talked about, taxes. It defers taxes on any growth. The rule of 72 is at as a given interest rate, your money doubles. So if your interest rate is 7% every 10 years, your money doubles. So in 20 years, if you're averaging 7%, your money's doubling. So if you put in 10,000, in the beginning, 10 years, your money doubled. Another 10 years, your money doubled. So now you've got 4 times your money that you had when you first started, with 10,000. So it would equal 40,000. The best part is you only put in 10, and now you have $30,000 worth of gains. Those gains are 100% tax-free as long as you use them for a qualified education expense. There's also a little, carrot on the top of the cake, and each state may offer tax breaks. Virginia offers a tax break per child per account of a state income tax. These are largely all state income tax deductions. DC offers one, Maryland offers one, Texas does not offer one. So certain states don't offer them, some states do. The state tax write-off, while it's nice, it's not going to make or break the decision to do a 529. That is going to be dependent on your long-term goals. Now, if you decide a 529 is the right way to go, well, can you put in a lot of money? Yeah, you can. So you can put in, you can gift up to $17,000 from somebody's estate per year. You can actually put in above $177,000 as a one-time contribution into it. I don't know why you would do that, but some people do, and that's the number. And the other thing about using a 529 is it can reduce your taxable estate, i.e. the benefit that we just talked about. You can gift money into that $17,000 per year per donor, or you could put in more and use your state exemption gifting throughout the year. So are there tangible benefits by doing this other than helping with education? Sure. Slight reduction in state income tax, you've got contributions, and it could help you on the estate side. So how do you choose a plan? Just because you live in Virginia, or if you live in DC or Maryland or whatever state you live in, do you have to use that home state's plan? The answer is no. You can use any plan that's out there, and I recommend that you do your due diligence. Different states have different fee structures available, different investment options available, and as a firm, when we work with clients that don't necessarily work in Virginia or live in Virginia, we don't always choose that home state. Sometimes there's no advantage. Texas, I picked on, there's no tax deduction. So, what are the fees? What are the investment options? Are they better than maybe a Virginia one, who actually Virginia is known as it has a very competitive 529 across the country. There's other states that offer really good 529 plans versus others. There's rankings. Do your due diligence. Go online, look at 529, who has the best 529? Just, Google it, chat GPT it, whatever. But you can find out that each plan has a little difference, and you might be looking for something that one plan state offers and one does not. The investments that are inside of these plans are tailored per the state's criteria, so that will also play into it. And then there really is no benefit to the state your plan is sponsored as long as it's a nationwide 529. So, the fee structure, I would just always say, look at the fee structure in a 529, because that is the biggest thing that I have found that is widely different between different states, is the fee structure and the investments, of course, that goes without mentioning. We are just stop for a moment. We are having questions. We are going to answer them in the Q&A at the end of the presentation. So keep them coming. We want to see them. If there's a question with technology, put it in the chat. If you have questions, we will continue to put them in the queue of the Q&A. And then at the end of the presentation, we're going to go through them and answer them as best we can. If it's more of a personalized question, we'll probably ask to take that offline, and we can chat on that at another time. So next one, how much can I contribute? So I actually said 177. That was a few years ago. Now it's up to 235 to 550. And that's based on the attendance of college, graduate programs, textbooks, room and board, etc. So, even if you go to Harvard, you're probably not spending $550,000. Maybe if you're going to Harvard and then go and get your master's there and then your PhD. But nevertheless, you can put a lot of money into these plans. The other nice thing about these plans is they are kind of, in a way, legacy plans. As long you can change the beneficiaries. Just because you start it for your oldest and then you have 2 other children doesn't mean you can't pass it down to those kids. The goal really is to save about 1/3 of your projected college costs, right? So the reason you want to do that is, you don't know what your kids are going to do in school, especially if you're opening this in, when they're 2 or 5, even 10, you might have a better idea, but you don't know for sure. You don't know what scholarships they're going to get, student loans they're going to get, financial aid that they're going to get, grants that they're going to get. You also don't know if they're really going to go to school, right? We all probably desire our children to go to school and get a good education. But you know what? A lot of people decide not to go to school. They go to an associate's, they get an associate's, they go to a trade school. Guess what? Trade schools can be covered in this. They might do, various other things that don't require an education from a formal institution. There might be an apprenticeship, then depending on how that's structured, that may qualify, that may not. So, there's really no annual plan contribution limits. There's overall contributions that we just talked about, but, you've got a lot of flexibility in regards to how much you can contribute. The 1/3, I would say 1/3 to 50% is what you want to be kind of aiming for in a 529. Whenever I see clients that are bumping up to 80% of their, expected college cost, I ask them to think about, hey, maybe we should start putting money other places, unless we have a very firm and confident, intuition on what's really going to happen with this child and their schooling in the future. So we touched on this a little bit, financial aid, so as I talked about in the FAFSA form, Assets held in a 529 receive favorable treatment, and distributions are not reported in this. So it may, impact aid eligibility when a grandparent owns it, or maybe a really close friend, who decides to be generous, opens a 529 for, their, best friend's kids or something like that. That can add to a better, a larger change in regards to age eligibility. But when a parent owns it for their children, it is very minimal in regards to affecting financial aid, especially through, the federal student aid form. When you're looking at institutions, educational institutions for grants or school financial aid, it could affect it a little bit more. That is dependent on the educational institution that you're dealing with. So just a little bit more about, grandparents. So if grandparents are doing a lot of, funding on these 529s, the rule, kind of just a general rule, is it could reduce the need aid by 50% of the amount of the distribution that would come from it. So you have $100,000 account, grandma and grandpa were very generous over the years, and you're distributing 25,000. Well, a certain portion of that, would be no longer counted against you as a need because you've gotten a distribution. So what are other qualified expense for education that you can use a 529 for? So 529 for, and that's really stuff that goes through the bursar office. That's the easiest way I can tell clients to remember. So here's a quick list: tuition, fees, books, materials, room and board. And the room and board, though, has to be on campus through the college. It cannot be for a private rental. A lot of people get caught up there. You got to be careful about that. Computers, related equipment, internet access, special needs equipment for attending college, university, secondary, flight school, flight hours, things of that nature. Lab equipment, specialized equipment, related to a certain major. It's really a pretty broad pace, as long as it truly is an expense based on the need for you to be there and get an education. You don't want to put things in here that aren't qualified, because if you get audited, the penalty is steep. So, there's some costs that you might think that would be in there, but the IRS does not consider being a qualified expense. For example, student health insurance, that's one of them. Transportation costs are not qualified expenses to get your child to and from school, unless the college or the institution charges for them as part of the comprehensive tuition fee. Again, going through that bursar office. A fee that's required for enrollment and attendance, you're good. The IRS has expanded the definition of what is a qualified education beyond traditional college costs, as I alluded to earlier, to include kindergarten through 12th grade expenses and student loan repayments. So there's a $10K annual limit for qualified K through 12 withdrawals, and a $10,000 lifetime limit on student loans. So if your child is going to private school, K through 12, well, you can do $10,000 out of your 529 without any issues. Student loans, you owe $10,000, you can take a $10,000 distribution from your 529 and help pay those student loan payments, but you can't take more than that. It's still advantageous to do that. Now, if you do not distribute the money in the proper way, you get a 10% penalty plus back taxes on all of the gains that you made on this. So you do not want to cross the IRS, dot your I's, cross your T's, make sure it is truly a qualified education expense. So how do we take money from a 529? Most plans allow you to distribute it directly to the account holder, the beneficiary of school. My personal preference and what I recommend at all times, if you can, have it go directly to the school. or the institution that you need to pay for. It's nice and clean and easy to follow the money. And if you ever get questioned by the IRS, it's easy to prove. So some accounts, allow you to do 529s to a landlord. Again, it's got to be through the bursar office. You want to be careful about that. If they're associated with the university, it's fine. So you always want to check with your own plan. So Virginia is different than Maryland, etc. Every state has different requirements in regards to how you can take distributions or and make sure that the money is getting where it needs to go. So this is a question I get quite a bit. Doesn't go to school. Child does not go to school. Well, what do they do? You can take a non-qualified withdrawal, but if your child all of a sudden got a free scholarship, tax-free scholarship, the 10% penalty is waived. If your child decides to go to the U.S. Military Academy, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, etc., your 10% is gone, right? You're still, if the account beneficiary dies or becomes disabled, 10% penalty is waived. What's not waived is still, if you put in 10 and it's worth 40 and you take out that money, you are going to pay income taxes on the $30,000. So you still have a significant tax hit to overcome when you take out that money. Now, if your oldest doesn't go to college, what can you do? Well, you can change the beneficiary of that 529 at any time. You can change it to somebody that has a relation. You can change it to a younger sibling. You can change it to maybe a family member, an extended family member. You can actually change it to your husband, your spouse, if you're married, your partner. All of those things, as long as there's a beneficiary, that beneficiary can change. It doesn't have to be set it and you're stuck. So there is some flexibility in regards to that. And that kind of runs into what I was talking to, going to be, this next slide talks about, so what happens to leftover money, right? So we can change the beneficiary, first bullet point. You can hold the funds in case the beneficiary decides to go later on or goes to grad school or does medical school. You can make yourself the beneficiary and decide to go to school. You can, maybe you study a different major, maybe it's continuing education for what you do for work. You can roll over the funds into an ABLE account. It's a savings account specifically set up for people with living with disabilities, if that's kind of what happens in your family and that's your situation. So there are options to the 529s. It's not use it or lose it. You've got some options. So since January 1st, just to give you some idea, 2018, parents also have the option to take $10,000 in a tax-free 529, right? K through 12. And this just kind of is the evolution of 529 plans, right? In 2019, distributions we can start to 10,000 in student loans per borrower for both beneficiary and beneficiary siblings. In 2024, up to 35,000 of a 529's plan's assets may be rolled over into a Roth IRA if the plan has been open for at least 15 years. This is the biggest improvement that we've seen to date in regards to this, other than what I would argue the K through 12, because that's fantastic. 35,000, into a 529. So if you open it when your child is 1, well, you got the 15 years locked out. Great. They don't go to school. Well, I no longer have to pass it to a sibling or use it myself or extended family or take the penalty. I can move it into a Roth IRA for that individual. And believe me, you are giving that person a huge leg up because they've had money growing. Again, if you're averaging 7% every 10 years, that money's doubling. 35,000 at year 20. Well, you got another, hopefully 60 years. That you do the math, and that's a significant change in regards to income or money that's never going to be taxed again by the federal government. So who can open 529s? So one of the advantages, pretty much anybody can open a 529. Friends, grandparents, Students themselves, if they're 18 or older, can hold and open a 529 to start kind of funding their own college. You can open an account in the name of a beneficiary who doesn't even know about it until you want them to use it, right? So just because you might want to, gift somebody some money, but you want to do it in kind of a private manner, this is one of the good ways to do it. Anyone can open a 529. Each plan can only have one beneficiary though. So one plan, one beneficiary. So, I could open one for my 3 children. I could have one for Carter, Ben, Reese. My wife could open one for Carter, Ben, Reese. So we could have 6 529 plans. And in Virginia, we could take, if we made the contribution of $4,000 each, we could take the $4,000 write-off times 6 against our Virginia income. So that's a way you can make maybe that Virginia or state deduction worthwhile. If you have a number of kids and you're able to max fund it, you use that strategy and you can multiply the amount that you're able to write off. So just something about that. Contributions for grandparents. This one comes up quite a bit. Estate planning, right? So grandparents can give $17,000 a year. Well, not grandparents, but anybody from their estate without it counting against their estate, their lifetime gift exemption. Historically, one of the major concerns about grandparents owned 529s was their impact on financial aid, right? So fortunately, grandparents, with the FAFSA simplification, which is gonna be, it's not quite yet there, in 2024, 2025, it will no longer require their financial support to be reported. So basically that means grandparents, this is a great way to provide for your grandkids and also not hurt their chances of getting financial aid down the line. So again, the unique advantage of a 529 is it acts a lot like a Roth IRA. You put the money in, it grows tax deferred, and then if you use it in the right manner, qualified education expense, you never pay money on any of those gains. It has the power of compound interest and investments to get behind it. This is a huge vehicle that affords that can really help put somebody on firm footing once they do graduate, so they don't have so much debt. The last thing I would just really, kind of focus in on for grandparents is they use this also for estate planning. As I talked about the 17,000, but you can put, lump sums, 150,000, 200,000, depending on the state, into these at one time. And that can be used against their lifetime exemption list. 200,000 gets swept in here and grows for 20 years. You're going to have a significant dollar amount that could pay for future education costs, not just one generation, but multiple generations. The owners of a 529 can be changed. The beneficiaries of a 529 can be changed. And they really can become a financial weapon to pay for and mitigate any future education costs down the line. So with that, here's my information. It's been a pleasure spending some time with you guys today. We do have a few questions that are in the Q&A, so we're going to go through those. My information's on here. You can also go to the credit union's website and click to schedule an appointment, and we can set up some time to talk about this or just holistic financial planning and see how this fits in. This is normally kind of one of the first calls to action when you're like, oh, we're having a kid, or somebody, if you're older and you're like, oh, my kids are having a kid, I would love to do this, love to talk to you about this, and then how a 529 can fit into your overall financial plan to help bring you the ability to live your best life and kind of not worry about the financial stuff because you've done what you need to do correctly. So with that, we'll jump into the Q&A. Carrie, you gonna run through it?
Sure. We have several questions. So the first one, what happens if you invest in a 529 in one state and your child chooses to go to a public university in a different state?
Sure. So if you're doing a 529, it doesn't matter where your child goes to school. you're able to use that money across. It just needs to be for a qualified education expense. If you're investing in a 529, like a prepaid tuition, there's normally a agreement between states of what that value is going to be. Now, if you did it all in Virginia, you are not going to get the same value than if your child decides to go to someplace in New York. You just won't. It's not a dollar for dollar from a tuition perspective, and some states won't even honor it. So those are some of the downsides of the prepaid tuition. 529s in an investment account, can be used anywhere across the country.
You touched on this a bit, but just to reiterate, if I have a surplus of funds down the road after paying for school, what happens to those funds?
Yeah, we talked about them a little bit. So you can change the beneficiary. You can use them later in life for, grad school, doctorate, or just, undergrad for a different, anything. You can, so you can really do that, or you can transfer them to somebody, depending on the 2024, 2025 change in regards to rolling into a Roth. I'd have to review. I don't know if that's retroed, but I believe it is. So you could also use that. The second part is, if I move into a new state, can I transfer my funds? In prepaid, normally they're locked in. On a 529, you can change states where the money goes or stays. Just like, you have an IRA with, Merrill Lynch, then you move it over to, Smith Barney, which doesn't even exist anymore. But
all right, can people invest in a 529, like two spouses and each get a tax credit for putting money into the 529, meaning having two 529s for one beneficiary?
Yep. Yeah, you definitely can. It's kind of in the realms of what I was giving the example of. I have 3 children. My wife and I, we have 6 529s. So, that allows us to take the the state deduction and times it by 6, because we have 6 accounts.
So back to for grandchildren. So the best options for 529 for a grandchild, would it be best for the parent to open it and grandparents contribute, or would opening it as a grandparent be fine?
If you're opening it for somebody that's very young, I would say grandparents are just fine, right? Because the law is changing. It's already on the books to get changed, 2024, 2025. So it's no longer going to impact the FAFSA side of it. And that's really that was the biggest concern back then. So should be fine.
A child can only have one 529 account. Is that correct? So a parent
Nope.
should, oh, sorry.
Yeah. So anybody can have, you can have, if, everybody wanted to carry you, the beneficiary of a 529, you can have 40 people that have 529 accounts with you as the beneficiary. There's no limit.
Okay. Did I get all of that question? So parents should open and grandparents. Okay. So can it only be used for US institutions, or can the beneficiary go to schools overseas for the degree, not a semester or a year, but for the entire degree?
I'd have to honestly look up the IRS kind of information on that. I don't believe it will take tuition from overseas schools, but I could be mistaken. Not sure. Don't want to speak out of turn.
That's a good question, though, or if you could use that for a year abroad or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
If another question, if my child does not end up going to college after 15 years, can the 529 still be rolled over to a Roth IRA?
It depends on, so beginning in if you're not using the money and starting in 2024, I believe, as long as it's $35,000 or less, you should be able to roll it over into a Roth IRA.
I hope I got every question. If I missed any, just throw them in the chat or whatnot. but I'll send
Yeah,
a link to the slides out when we're done and Michael's contact info. Michael, do you want to finish off talking about how to open a next steps or any of that and say good?
Yeah, sure. So if you're looking to open a 529, obviously I can help you, our firm can help you do that. We normally do that in conjunction with kind of an overall financial review of your overall finances. It can be a powerful financial tool to really help offset, the school costs. Again, we can open it in any state that you desire. We would have a robust conversation about what state we want to choose to open it up and why. Just because you live in a state doesn't mean you necessarily use that state's 529 plan, as we talked about. We would also go through the pros and the cons of prepaid tuition. But you can reach out. My phone number is on the screen. There's a link on the credit union's website that will direct you directly to my calendar, and then we can set up a time, and then we can have a conversation, see what's the right fit.
I do think with graduation coming up, that 529s are a good gift idea.
They definitely can be. 529s are a great way to plan for the future. A lot of people start them as birth presents, kind of as a new child is born, because you have time on your side, or grade school, middle school graduations, things of that nature. We've also seen an uptick in people setting up 529s for like birthday gifts from parents and family, and grandparents. So just things to think about.
Oh, and Michael, before I let Kim and Milton say goodbye, can you just talk about, because it always comes up, a little bit about our relationship, our credit union members and accessing fellows and just the complimentary discussions and all that stuff?
Yeah, no, if we have a discussion, we're not going to chain you to the desk and make you sign on a dotted line. And we take a little softer approach. Fellows is partnered with the credit union because, like I said in the beginning, we share values about helping people accomplish their goals. And we're not looking to work with every single person on the street. We chose the credit union, and they chose us for specific reasons. And so when we have a conversation, it's truly going to be around the education piece, making sure that we're doing what's right for you. And if there needs to be a solution provided, we're happy to provide it. But we're here as a resource for members. I have a number of conversations. It's just about a little quick question about this on finance or this, and then I have larger holistic financial planning, family planning, generational planning that we do.
Well, thank you very much, Michael and Milton and Kim. Want to say farewell?
Great presentation, Michael. Thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Milton, Carrie, Kimberly, thank you for your time today, and all the members. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And like always, it's truly a pleasure. And just want to invite everyone to our next Wednesday webinar as well too. That one will be at 6 p.m. and it will be on another exciting topic, which is one that is impacting a lot, and that is elder abuse. So if you have anyone that would be interested, we will love for you guys to send in the information. They can visit our website, ussfcu.org, and then you can see the list of all of the webinars that we have coming up. Once again, thank you all so much for taking your time on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. We look forward to seeing you back again next week.